Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Hi Bruce. We're gonna give folks a second to get into the platform. But thank you for joining. And kind of go through the kind of sequence of setting up your job search and how to think about things. We'll probably focus on more like the front end of the job search. We'll sort of like accelerate through the back end of the job search, interviewing, negotiating, things like that. But we'll probably be a little more front loaded in terms of research, customizing your resume, tracking your applications, all that kind of stuff. It is a Lego Voltron that you see there. There it is. Since someone mentioned it, I guess I gotta bring it up. But yeah, it's made of Legos. I made it with my kids, and it was pretty cool. But yes, then it does come apart and comes back together, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Rich, we could maybe sing around the end and talk Voltron. Alrighty, well, cool. Emily's on the chat and can answer a lot of questions. I like to take a beat like every 15 minutes and answer questions and kind of keep it conversational. That's a good one, Aaron. I have 2 daughters, and as much as I try to get them into Spider-Man and all the things I like, I have not succeeded. I've had like fits and spurts, but I try. That's not to say I won't build Lego Barbies. That's not beneath me. I will do that. Okay, we will dive into things here. Go ahead and start to load up your questions in the chat, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, or directly in StreamYard. We're streaming to all 3. Oh, and I'm streaming to X as well. Meant to get the Twitch stream up and running. There's not many people streaming resume content on Twitch, but I wanted to try that. But next month, we'll get to that. But would love feedback on that. No, definitely not. Don't expect them to do my hobbies. All right, so let's jump on here. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so we're going to talk, I'm going to use Teal as kind of the backdrop for a lot of this work, but I make it a point to stress that you can do this anywhere. You can do this with pencil and paper if you'd like. You can do it with a yellow pad. You can use other great job search tools that I will try my best to reference as well. I think a job search is a great time to try to learn things. Beyond just the searching itself, it's a good opportunity to try different techniques. But we'll use Teal, given that it's kind of got a little bit of everything all along the way, as kind of like the structure for this. So when you're kicking off your search, I think one of the most important things to do is to understand the market. What I see a lot of people do is jump right into their resume and they start to document all the ways they want to present themselves to the market. Go ahead and collapse the chat. It's throwing me off. And that's important. You need to document all the things that you're good at and things that you know how to do, but you also need to understand what the market wants and what the market's looking for. And a lot of times you can use that as a way to sort of remember things that you've done. So we're going to kick off there, which is looking for jobs. All right. So there's a few things to think about when you're looking for jobs. There's obviously job titles. So in this case, we're going to be Tina Miller. Tina Miller is a senior marketer. So let's go ahead and do senior marketing manager. Gotta spell it right. And you can start to look at jobs by title, but the thing is, titles are all over the place, and companies. I'm getting a thing from StreamYard saying LinkedIn is not streaming, but last time I messed with that, I ruined it, so I'm not doing that this time. I broke it last time. I broke the stream. So I don't know if anyone is on LinkedIn and it's actually working. Let me know, or if you can check it, Emily. Let me see. Let me pop open LinkedIn in a separate tab. It is not streaming to LinkedIn. Okay, I'm not going to kill the stream because I broke it last time I did this. Let me see if I can reestablish it. If we lost LinkedIn, you can go to StreamYard directly. Well, you wouldn't be hearing this if you were on LinkedIn because we're not streaming there. So, all right, I'm just going to keep going because, again, last time I ended it and thought it would come right back like a Zoom, and it didn't. So hopefully LinkedIn folks will get here. So you want to understand the market, and job titles is a great way to do it, but job titles are all over the map. There is no standard when it comes to job titles. There is no consistent way that companies do it. So you can definitely do it, and it's a good start, and you can start to see, okay, this is a senior marketing manager. If you wanted to start to have a better understanding of the market, you could say, oh, only show me jobs that have comp. And so now I can start to see every job I look at. And what we're doing here is we're doing research. We actually don't, if you see one you like, great, apply. But what you want to do is understand the market. You understand like what the market's offering in terms of comp. What are the different sort of lenses by which you can do that? What are the different responsibilities we're seeing in the various jobs? And that's going to change, and it's going to be all over the place, right? Even if we just looked at like years of experience. This one's 9. Let's go to this one. This one's 8. This one's 10. 10. 7. So it just goes to show you that different companies are going to frame it in different ways. And so titles alone sometimes aren't great. So what I recommend is you start to think about other parameters that might actually help you discover things. So in this case, just to illustrate the idea, I'm going to get rid of the job titles, and I'm going to come over to my advanced filters. And almost every job board has these things. Like I said, I'm doing it through Teal, but you could do this on LinkedIn. You can do this on Indeed. Hiring Cafe is really good. There's a bunch. So if I were to just do keywords now, let's just say Tina wants to look for jobs that have HubSpot and paid media. And let's show results. Right, so now we're down to 183 jobs, and we can see, okay, what are some of the titles we're getting here? Now, if we wanted to try to up the experience to 5+ years, we're down to 104 jobs. Okay, marketing campaign manager. Probably wouldn't have searched for that title, right? That's a little bit specific, but that title is something that definitely qualified for it, and probably a lower comp than Tina would want. And also our comp is still turned on, so these are only jobs that show comp. Regional marketing digital campaign manager. You can see that these titles start to be a little different, and maybe things we wouldn't have looked up. So I recommend using keywords only sometimes to see how the market is presenting titles, because there's something there that you could learn from. So definitely do some with titles, see what you get, but then see if you can discover titles. There's other ways you can do that. You can like leverage ChatGPT or an AI tool, and I'll show you the one we have here in a second that you could use. Let's go ahead and let's stay here for a sec. So the other thing I recommend you do is set up job alerts. You want to start to have those jobs coming to you. We're still doing research. Let's come back to job alerts in a second. So we're still kind of in the research phase of things. So you can also use AI. And so in Teal, you have what we have our AI job search. And you can use this more as like a conversational agent to help you look for jobs. If you want to just understand, like based on your resume, what jobs are available. If your resume is loaded in Teal, if you have never used that, I'll show you that in a minute. But let's just go ahead here. It's going to use all my resumes, and it's going to sort them by relevance because that's all I care about right now. And I use a transcription tool called WhisperFlow. So if you see me talking into the computer, it's not magic. It's just a tool I use. So let's do this. Based on my resume and experience, what are some jobs I would be qualified for given the contents of the job descriptions and less so the titles. So this is going to search millions and millions of jobs. Sometimes it takes a minute to come back. It can be a little slow, but it is searching across all the databases, and it's not just doing like filtered searches. It's looking at the whole body of the job description, the whole body of your resume, and then doing comparisons. And so it'll bring those up, but then you can chat with it almost like ChatGPT. It's actually powered by Claude. It uses that engine as the AI. And you can use it to kind of converse about your resume, tell you alternative job titles. And so here we'll do like another research like question once we get some jobs here. So here we go. It's found some jobs. It's telling me marketing director, digital campaign. It's looking at my skills. And so here's marketing manager lead generation. And you can go into the jobs. The same way you would in Teal, you can read about them and see the responsibilities. You can ask follow-up questions to the jobs. Here's another. And so you can keep chatting with it if you want to see more jobs. But you can see other marketing director jobs. Maybe I would say, now I can use it more in this research-like capacity. What are some of the most common skills across these jobs and things I need to make sure I have in my resume? And so using that database of jobs, it'll now aggregate up the job descriptions and give me information about them. Because it's got access to all these jobs, it's as if imagine you pasted 100 job descriptions to ChatGPT and said, what do these jobs all have in common? That's all here now. So you can kind of save those steps. So it's going to think about that, and that'll come through in a second. And you can ask it, while it's crunching on that, other things you could do with it is like, what are some common benefits on these jobs? What are alternative job titles? What are patterns in the hiring market? What companies are hiring these kinds of jobs? You can sort of ask it anything of this job database of millions of jobs, and it'll return insights for you. So here we go. So here are some essential skills that we're seeing across these. 90% of the jobs have Salesforce, Marketo if it's B2B, email marketing. Right now, these are all skills. We don't have an easy way to get these into your resume. Right now, they're kind of, it's one directional. It just reads your resume. But you can use these insights, and then these threads are saved, and you can come back to these conversations. If I close that, those are all saved here, your past conversations. So you can come back to them. But highly recommend you check out this tool. It's completely free for now. It's a little pricey for us to run, actually, but it's completely free. It's got access to all the jobs. It's a teensy bit slow. We're looking to speed it up, but give it a shot. It should help with a lot of things. You can even have it write you resume bullets. Again, you're going to have to like manually copy paste them into your resume. But I recommend you check it out for this research phase. All right, so now that we've done our research, we understand the market. What I recommend you start doing is saving searches. Again, every job search has these, but you want to start to check these on a regular basis to see how the market's adapting. And then in a perfect world, you have it send you jobs. You start to get a push. So let's go ahead and set one of those up. Let's go back to Senior Marketing Manager. And we'll do search for that. I only want jobs that have comp. In this case, I want to be remote. And so there we go. We got 76 jobs. And what I would do is come in here into this 3-dot, and I would save this search, Senior Marketing Manager. And on Teal in particular, this is something we recently rolled out, kind of did it kind of quietly. You can now set up alerts, and you can ask how you want to get them, either instant or daily. And instant is as soon as we find it. We're constantly ingesting jobs. So if we find something that meets your criteria, we'll send you an alert, and you'll get those jobs. And we ingest jobs almost every hour. If you want a daily digest, then you can set daily. We'll just go ahead and do instant right here. We'll save that. And so now as jobs are found, Tina's going to get emails. That's saved. And you can set up multiple alerts. The idea is that we wanted to give you like very granular control. So you can then anything in these advanced filters, particular keywords, industries, the years founded, funding rounds, you can set all that up as filters and as saved searches. And so when you come back, you can just preload that save search, and they'll be right here. Any questions so far? How are we doing? Okay, we're 15 minutes in, so let me do a quick check for questions. Can you provide a custom? Yes. So if you come over to your advanced filters and do companies, you can add you can add companies in, say OpenAI. If I wanted to work at AI companies, you could set that up, and then you could do a save search. There's no jobs for that, but say if I got rid of that, and what else do I have in here? I don't think either of those companies are remote. So there you go, 149 jobs at those companies. You might want to filter it with certain keywords or something. Let's try just something to add a keyword of, say I was looking for engineering jobs. So 34 jobs. Let's see if we have 2 OpenAIs. We're working on a little bit of that cleanup right now. I guess they don't have any jobs with Python. Or they might not list comp. It could be that also if I turn that off. So there you go. That's what it is. They don't have comp in their JDs. So then you would just save a search and then set up alerts for that. So I recommend, the way this is built is you set up multiple alerts and make them pretty granular. That was kind of like the paradigm we chose. We are looking at expanding those so you can do multiple titles and sort of have less alerts. But again, given some of them are going to send as soon as we get them, and then you can control them at the alert level. Okay, let's go back to Tina's saved search here. Oh, wait, let me look for some other questions. Okay. What if your profession is very niche? Yeah, give it a try. We have a lot of jobs in here, and we recently just opened up the aperture to even let more jobs in. We were kind of filtering them pretty strictly. So give it a shot. And if you're not seeing jobs, let us know. Try keywords, and then, but I think that's exactly why we built the AI search, because it can allow you to be a little more loose. So that's the idea. Okay, let me jump up to a few more here. Let me just scroll up. I always start with the latest one, and then I don't get to the questions that were asked. How many job boards does Teal aggregate from? We don't aggregate from job boards. We source our data from job data providers that pull directly from company ATSs. So we try very hard not to link out to LinkedIn or Indeed. Some of those might sort of squeeze through the cracks sometimes, but really it's directly from ATSs, which is what we're trying to do. We don't scrape them ourselves. We have, there's companies that specialize that, and so we just buy that data from them. But that's how we get those. So we don't aggregate aggregators. Oh, Tim was asking, what happened to being able to auto-load contacts? LinkedIn told us we couldn't do that, and we got in a lot of trouble, so we had to get rid of it. Well, we didn't get in trouble. We would have gotten in trouble if we didn't get rid of that feature. So we did. We're not supposed to do that, so we stopped it. Want to be good citizens of the internet. Ultimately, it wouldn't have affected us. Actually, it would have affected the users of the extension, and that's the last thing we would want to have happen, is someone who's using Teal have something bad happen to their LinkedIn account because of a tool we made. So even though it made it easier for everyone, it's in violation of their terms of services, so we got rid of that. Okay. Bullets were not evenly spaced. Yeah, send us a ticket. We will dig into it if we can. I'll get to match scores in a little bit when I talk resumes. Someone's recommending where to get your stream from. The PCs can be a little glitchy. Thanks, Craig. I'm glad it's helpful. Some networking in here. That's great. Highly recommend you guys network and connect with each other. Yes, every Caesar, everyone is recorded. It's immediately published to YouTube after this, so it'll be on there. So we don't edit them, so it's kind of raw, but jump around if there's particular moments you wanted. Okay. Okay. Multiple resumes, different titles. Yep, we'll talk about master resumes in a little bit. We talked about the custom companies. All right, cool. And Jake, everything I've shown so far is free, so you don't need to upgrade for any of that. Yes, advanced filters do go through to the alerts. Harris. Okay, I'm going to pause there and jump back into it. Okay, so now that you've done your research, you understand the market, I would say, read the responsibilities, read the requirements, get a sense of what's going on in the market, use this to help establish your expectations, even just like what comp you want to get to. I think it's this isn't like a long process, but I think it's helpful to understand the market. Next, now you want to start to save those jobs. Let's go back over to, let's do one of, that does not, maybe because I'm on that. There we go. So let's go ahead and start to save some of these jobs. I'm not going to go too crazy with that right now because I want to show you what we would do with that. So let's say this senior marketing manager job, we like it. We'll go ahead and bookmark it in our tracker. Again, this is something I'm doing very easily within Teal. If you're using Notion, Airtable, Google Drive, saving the job descriptions is very valuable, and saving the body of the job descriptions as well, because you can paste those into AI and you can learn from them and then you can use them to help you write your resume. So I recommend that you do that because they also come offline, especially if there's one that you're researching and you're going to use to kind of build your master resume. Save the job and save the job description. We'll go ahead and save another here, bookmark and tracker. And just to show that with Teal, if I was searching for jobs on LinkedIn, you can use our Chrome extension to save jobs because jobs are publicly available. So you can save things that are public. You can't save things that are behind the login on LinkedIn. So jobs are public and most of the job description is public. So when you have the Chrome extension, even though you're logged in, we go and get it from the public page. We don't touch this page. You can now rate it if you're excited about it. You can add some notes about it. You can change its stage right here. Say it's a job you already applied to, and you save the link to Teal. What that's going to do is if you go over to your job tracker, we will go offline, not on the page, go grab that job. And that's why it's loading. It's a little longer, but we're kind of making sure we're in compliance. Then that'll pull that in for you. We go out to the internet, we find that job on the internet and on LinkedIn's public pages, and we bring it in here. And if I close it, then you'll see here's your jobs. And if you want to see keywords only or the job description and the keywords, you can change those settings right here. By default, the job description is up. I think this is just the last time I used this account that was on. And then you can see the hard skills, you can see soft skills. And if you wanted to, you can actually group them by JD section. So requirements, job responsibilities is a little bit redundant with how you have it on the left. So that's why we default it by category, but it does color them by category: hard skill, soft skill, and other. But that's how you can bring those in. And it works with, I mean, if a website changes their structure, sometimes we can't get it, but it works with most career pages, and it works with Indeed. But if it's not working for a particular site, let us know. We don't have like global coverage. There are so many job boards, I mean, thousands of them, and we'd have to like manually write the instructions to each one. So worst case, you can paste it in by hand. If you, on the extension, you can come here and say add job manually, and then you can just paste in the fields anywhere and bring that in with you. And so the same works for contacts. Since we can't load in a contact, we'll save the link for you, but you do need to manually enter the values. All right, so that's bringing jobs into Teal, starting to save jobs. Now, what I recommend you do, and this is a little bit of like a go slow to go fast before you start applying, is to start to build up what we call the master resume. This is where you want to document everything you've ever done, because this is going to enable you to go faster before you start applying to jobs. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the Teal resume builder. I've already loaded in Tina's initial content. So if we come over to, we'll make a new resume from scratch. And you'll see it has everything. It's very, very long. This isn't what we recommend you apply to jobs with, but we recommend that you have this database of everything you've ever done. You know, what I recommend if you're using Google Docs or Sheets or another resume builder, Resi is good, Enhansive is good. There's lots of great ones. Is have a version that's got everything. And then if the tool's not purpose built for a master resume, what you do is just like duplicate it and then delete the stuff. It's just so much easier to delete than add. So I always recommend having this one base one that's in your template already, kind of styled the way you want it. So it's really easy to make new ones. All right, that's the kind of methodology I recommend. We got a YouTube video on that. that we could share in the follow-up. And then all the getting started with Teal stuff, that there's tons of YouTube videos for those as well. So I'm going to keep it more kind of conceptual at the ideas of the process and less like a Teal tutorial. Again, I'll talk about parts of Teal, but what you want to do is you want to have this place where you put everything, all the titles, versions of your professional summaries. So you don't have to write those, every job you've had, every position you've had at that job, as many bullets as possible. Because right now, this is about creation. This is about documenting everything you've ever done. This isn't about curation. And where I see a lot of people struggle with their resumes, they're trying to do both at the same time. They're trying to write this perfect, like 1 to 2 page doc that covers all aspects of them. And what ends up happening, it ends up being like a very thin and general version of you. And companies have pretty specific things they want. So what I recommend is you have this one place where you write down everything you've ever done, your interests, everything. Like really, you don't have to hold back on anything. And then as you apply to jobs, you would make what I call application resumes, and you can just include the things you want. So let's talk about the master for a second. So this is where using job descriptions as a way to help you sort of tease out the things you've done. Because I think I see a lot of people either one, take for granted the abilities they have, and like, yeah, well, I know how to do that, but nobody cares. Untrue. Actually, companies care. So you really want to document everything you've ever done and don't take any of it for granted, because they're not going to assume just because you have the job title that you have certain abilities. You really want to be as explicit as possible. So let's take one of these jobs here. Let's take let's match one of these jobs. So we're going to use the job matching mode, even though we're not applying right now. We're going to use it as a way to find gaps in our experience. So we'll take this last job I just bookmarked at consensus from my tracker. And now you've got Teal's matching mode here. Again, you could do this with ChatGPT. JobScan is really good at this. Almost all the resume builders have an ability to paste in a JD now. That's a job description. So recommend you do it. Again, we're just doing it here. But now what it's going to do is this is a director. Oh, this is a director of product marketing. Let's pick a different one. Let's switch the job to performance marketing. Let's say Tina's done some management of paid media, and that was one of her jobs, but it really wasn't highlighted on her resume, and she wants to go after a paid media position because they pay more than just a marketing manager position. So performance marketing is nowhere to be found on the resume. So you have a couple choices, things that are like pretty specific hard skills. You can just add them into the skills section of your resume. I'm a big fan of a skills section, but a lot of times people want to see it in context. So we could just add it here, just add a plus and get it in there. Red means it's completely missing. Yellow means it's on our master resume and just not turned on. And green means we have it turned on. So if I turned off performance marketing, it'll become yellow. Turn it back on, it shows there. But then things like, let's look at like acquisition channels. Acquisition channels probably makes for a weird skill. It's not really a noun or like a crisp verb in that sense. So that I probably want to show in a bullet. Managed multiple acquisition channels to drive activation. So what you want to do there is then create content for your resume. And so right from here, I'm going to go ahead and write a bullet. And I can pick which position I did that at. So we'll go ahead and say she did it when she was a senior marketing manager at Regis. And then that's going to generate bullets. Now you can pick other keywords if you want to get in here. It's pulling these from the JD as well. So we can say, sure, we did acquisition channels and we experimented. And we'll go ahead and generate bullets. And this is using AI to propose ideas. Right? Obviously, the AI wasn't there with you. It doesn't know the exact numbers. Think of these as templates and examples to help get the creative juices flowing. You can tweak them, but find one that you feel is the closest, or you could regenerate them if you want to make more. If you don't like any of these, let the computer do the work. I'm going to go ahead and just use this one. Hit use bullet, and now I would change it. Maybe I'm not comfortable with that number. If you're not comfortable with numbers at all, just get rid of it. That's totally fine. We'll just go ahead and say 30% growth, and we'll just go ahead and save that. And now that bullet's been added to that job. And again, this part of building out your master resume is about adding content. So what I would say is go find 5 to 10 jobs. If you want to apply to them, great, but don't really think that's the main purpose. So even if they're old, that's okay. Or even if you have the job, the JD for the job that you landed and that you currently have, see, like, is it a match? Do you have all those keywords? Do you have all those responsibilities? You want to use those as ways to document everything you've ever done. And you want to have, I don't know, I would even give yourself a goal of like 15 bullets per position. And that way you have a nice, rich data set of content that you can pull from as you're applying to jobs. And honestly, it feels kind of good to document how awesome you are and all the cool things you've done. Sometimes you forget. So it's a good kind of empowering process. And I would say is go ahead and fill that out. Now, you put in certifications, different, professional summaries. You kind of really want to tailor. If there's one or two that you like, you kind of want to generate those per jobs, but go ahead and fill out all your positions here. If you want, you can collapse all companies, make sure you fill out all your companies, fill out your education, go crazy on skills and interests, add in everything. So when you do it with JDs, I would say things that are specifically things like software or technologies, I would put in. I'm looking for. So sometimes these I think are a little easier to look at grouped by category. Now, when you're looking at your qualification, like how well you match, I would group them by JD section and make sure like in the requirements, you're more green. The nice to have the responsibilities not as important. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you might have seen that I did say nice to haves are pretty. I think in this market, companies are going to prefer nice to haves, but I would say if you don't have the requirements, don't even bother applying. If you want a real shot at it, obviously nice to haves. You kind of want to make sure you've got all those as well. But I would look here and see, okay, in hard skills, are there any like other names of softwares or something? That might be like affiliate marketing, acquisition marketing. Sure, I'll go ahead and add that to my skills. Landing pages, sure, maybe influencer marketing. I'd add that as a skill, things like that. So you can go ahead and fill that out and get in as much coverage as you can. All right, let me take I'm going on time. 15-minute mark. Let me take a quick beat for questions. That's master resume. And this is, like I said, we'd try to start a little slow. This is all like the prep work and all the things you want to get right before you start to apply. Let me see where I am here. Okay. I already answered the questions where the jobs come from. If your profession is very niche, I think like AI is very helpful there. Obviously, depending on the jobs that are posted on the market, it is what it is. But you can also look for, this is why I think titles are tricky. Maybe your skills are actually applicable to other titles. So I'd look for that. Donine just asked about pulling in from various job sources. We're trying to enrich the jobs. So right now they're not all directly connected to who's invested. And so, we have, some of them have it. And so some of those fields at the bottom in the filters sometimes may not work as well or be as factual. Like there may be jobs that are funded by certain investors and they don't show up that way. We have to enrich all that data. We do all that. The jobs don't come with that data. So we have to match them up and connect them and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Craig is asking, does the X days ago, that refers to when the job was posted, not when we ingested it. So sometimes if you get an alert, it says it was 2 days ago, we might have gotten it today, but in the data, it actually went live on their ATS 2 days ago. That kind of depends on when our data providers actually get it from the ATSs. All right, let's see. Let me go ahead and stop screen sharing while I do that because I can answer this a little better. How do you balance making resumes ATS friendly and friendly to human reading? I'll talk a little bit about that in the resume. I'm always kind of like a human first approach to resume creation. I think a lot of the ATS stuff is a little bit scare tactics and not entirely true. There's some like technicalities you want to look out for, parsing, and it depends on like if you want your resume to be really good at auto-populating the fields when you apply. And that's just a time saver at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter. There's certain things you want to do that makes them more parsable. But I'd say by far the most important thing is that the text is like highlightable. That way, when they do a search across their ATSs for keywords, your resume will show up in there. If it's like a PNG or a JPEG, that becomes really, really difficult. Some ATSs do have OCR, optical character recognition. But I'd say that's like the most important part. The rest, it's kind of fine. But I can talk about that in a second when we get into some of like the formatting of the resume. Okay, so Joshua asked, so when creating a master resume, we shouldn't worry at first about analyzer score. No, definitely not. Ignore that. That's, because that's really about an application resume. And that's a good question because we don't really make that distinction well. Those are for when you're applying to a particular job and you're kind of tightening it up for clarity and presentation. Your master resume, just ignore that. Because it's really about just a ton of stuff and so that you can pick from it later. Emily answered that in the chat already. So this is a question. Joel asked about not having concrete results. What you can do there is focus on kind of like more directional. You can use qualitative language, like improved, things like that without the metrics. You can also use approximations if you want. Like that, I know that everyone you sort of follow that talks about resumes is going to say, look, numbers, metrics, got to get them on your resume. Look, they help. They absolutely help. They stand out. But they're not a requirement. If you got the skills and the abilities, and you have a good narrative on your resume, you'll be fine. Like it helps, but it's not critical. Now, if it's an occupation that tends to be more metrics driven, I do think that matters. Like if you're in growth marketing or performance management, performance marketing, things that are very like empirical in nature and you don't have numbers, that in and of itself is a signal. So those are some of the things I would look up. Engineering, that's a little trickier, right? Like engineers don't measure like their efficiency and how much code they write or how fast they write code or the optimizations of it. But if you're in something that's more like sort of measured sales, marketing, things like that, then yeah, I think it's going to make a difference because the good candidates are going to have it. And so it's less about like, do you need to have it, not have it? It's how do you stay competitive in the market? Okay, let's see if there's anything. What can be used if you don't have any formal education? But education is just going to depend on the job. Some jobs have explicit requirements, some don't. So I would look for jobs that don't have those explicit requirements. Oh, Bob asks about, yeah, we've talked about that, having a particular place as like the master. We want to do that. We haven't done it yet. Right now, they're kind of all one. We had a version of that before, and some folks got like a little confused by it. I think it was more of our execution than the idea of it. So, but yeah, it's a great suggestion. Okay, cool. I'm going to jump back in now to application resumes, and I'll sort of mark where I am. All right, adding my screen back to the stage here. So now let's take one of these jobs and say we actually want to prepare a resume for it and talk through what I would say is like an application resume. I'll go ahead and go to creating a resume. And there's a couple settings here I want to show up here in the menu. What I'm going to do is content settings. And I'm going to default all my content to off. If you have a very long master resume, by default, all your content is going to be turned on when you make a resume. Yeah, your choice. If it's easier for you to turn things off or for you to turn things on, your call. But I'm going to go ahead and default it to off. I'm going to make a new resume. And so now I just get my name, my title, and my professional summary, which will probably pick a different one also. So then we'll come over to our job matcher, and I'm going to pick one of my jobs. So here, let's try this. Sure, this senior manager, corporate marketing and communications. Whoa, that's a 5% score. That's pretty. Oh, that's because everything's turned off. The score is based on what's turned on. So, but we are missing quite a few skills here. We could also, let's look for something that gives us a little bit of a better. Let's do. That's the job. We just did it. We'll just do marketing director. And we do give you the match score on our job search. So, just by doing that, I've got it. So I'll go ahead and bookmark that job. If I do increase match score, it creates a new resume and by default turns all, I think it turns all the content on. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and go back to the resume builder now. And so this is marketing director 2. Oh, this job was not parsed well. Oh, it doesn't. No wonder we have such a high score. Sorry. Gotta catch myself there. Here, we'll use this one. It's 32% match. And now we'll come over back to our resume builder. Let's go ahead and switch that job. All right. So we have a low score again because everything's turned off, but I kind of want to go through that process of showing how to turn things on. So all these yellow ones, you can see them in your resume. So you can now turn these on. I'll talk about that in a second. You can quickly kind of go through anywhere there's yellow. We want to automate this flow for you. We had it before, but it was a bit rigid, so it's kind of disabled right now. But obviously, we'd want you to be able to just like click and turn these on real quick. We intend to bring that back. But you can see all these jobs really have a bunch of content, but nothing that sort of meets the criteria. Or lots of bullets that don't meet the criteria. So why would we want those on? And kind of like speaks to the idea of tailoring. So I'm not going to go through all those one by one. Get the idea. You don't need to watch me pick and click. But now, as you're creating, even though you've gone through that exercise of creating a master resume, you're still going to find things as you're applying to jobs that you are capable of, and you have those abilities. They're just not on your resume. Now, I don't in any way recommend you lie or make things up. So you're not just going to like inflate your match score because the AI makes it really easy. But I would even use that as a test for yourself of if you should even bother wasting your time applying. But that's where like the match score becomes important. Even when you're job searching, if your master resume is not completely filled out, it's gonna show a low score. But as you're applying, if you add more content, you're gonna add more and more of your capabilities, and so it'll give a better representation of if you're a match or not. So now I would look at this job. Okay, like say Tina knows Trello. She's used that before. She's used Twilio before. These are just names of software. Tableau. I think those are great candidates to just put into your skills section, because it's kind of weird to say like I use Tableau to do data analysis in a bullet. That's kind of unnecessary. But a skills section, that's a great way to show the company you use the tools they use, and they're quick wins to just get that skim of keywords that I highly recommend. But now what I would do is I would focus on looking, okay, what are the bullets I need to get in here? I would then group it by JD section. I really want to focus on the requirements first and say, okay, what's in here that I'm missing? Okay, it seems to be a pretty analytics heavy job. So I'll go ahead now and add a bullet around like A/B testing. I'll say I did that in my most recent position. Try to get some other keywords in here, like analytics and life cycles, generate bullets. This one's covering those. I'll go ahead. Again, I'm not going to, you can just look out for these variables. Save it. And that gets my score up. Now, this bullet might be one I really want to care about, I really want to emphasize. And so I might drag that one up because I know they care about it and make it the top bullet in that position. So you can reorder your bullet. So I'm not going to go and do bullet by bullet because you guys get the idea. I do want to show you the other ways you can make bullets. I didn't cover that on the master, which I forgot to, but we'll go ahead and add a bullet. And so here I'm just doing it within the context of the content editor. And if you do write bullet, let's slide this over so you can read these. Automatic is going to use your job title. And if there's a job matched, it's going to use the JD to suggest them. And so that's going to be those suggestions. If you do keyword, you can pick keywords. If a job is matched, it's going to pull the keywords from the job description. If a job is not matched, it's going to suggest keywords based off the job title. If you have a job description matched, you can actually address individual bullets of the job description. It parses those in real time. It should do that before, but here you go. So like, manage referral flows. If you've done that, you can pick a particular bullet in the JD. And then you can write a resume bullet relative to that. Again, I'd probably change like the software name, but if it was in their JD, maybe you want to put it. And then the other one, which I really love when you're making the master resume, is the coach me. Because I think, again, a lot of people struggle with remembering what they did and what their accomplishments were. So it's going to prompt you through two sets of questions. Like, did you, optimize the content? And then it's going to ask you a follow-up question, improve conversion rate, and then it'll use that to write bullets. So this is like a little bit of a questionnaire. It's kind of buried, but it's one of my favorite features we have, and it can help you with that. And then also you can write in your own custom prompts. So if you wanted to rewrite a bullet, you can just give it a prompt like you would, instruct it, and it'll change it. The bullets make up 70% of your resume. So I really think that's where your time and energy should be. the facts, your education, certifications, just include those if you need to. Get those one time. Kind of don't mess with them again. The bullets are really where your resume shines and your capabilities shine. So I would focus a lot of time and energy on those. All right, so now let's go to the resume itself. A lot of people start with their template. I don't personally think the template matters all that much. It needs to be crisp and clean. You can change it after the fact. I think the content is so, so, so important. The templates can be like fun to play with and they're visual and like I'm a designer by education, I get it, but the content really is like the hard part and it's really the most impactful part. So that's what I always say, like focus on the content and then you can focus on the packaging. But you can then do what works for you there. If you come over to the designer, pick a template that you feel like tells your narrative well. There's some things around how you structure information that I think matter, but let's talk about those and some decisions you would make. I'm not even going to get into the styles yet. Things like alignment and stuff like that. We'll get into that in a minute. But the sections and what you want to put where. Let me make sure that things like education are turned on. So we'll just go ahead and turn those on. Let's turn on a few skills. And if you have these other things like certifications or awards, you can obviously put those on as well. But generally, if you recently got a degree, whether it's a graduate degree or an undergraduate degree, if that was the most recent thing you did and it wasn't work, you probably put that at the top, because it's what you most recently did. Resumes, for the most part, are done in reverse chronological order. Companies want to know what you most recently did. There are cases where a functional resume, or I think what's called like a hybrid resume, Teal doesn't support those. You have to kind of like hack it to do that. And there are some cases, but I would say 90% of the time, just like stick to reverse chronological. If you can tweak the messaging, you might group some things, but that might be a reason that you put education first. But all that can be rearranged here pretty quickly, and you can change it for jobs you apply to. That's kind of like our idea is that you have like resume, you have career data, and you have presentation of that data. So that's why you can change a template at any point. You can try different things, and we have that separation of those two things. Then other things to think about. Look, these are my opinions and why I think they're good. I don't think any of these things ultimately either get you hired or not hired, but I think it's important you do things that you like. So, location, that sometimes matters. If it's not on in Teal, you just need to make sure that that is turned on here. So like these dates and locations were turned off because we turned off everything by default. So let's go ahead and turn those on. And if you have configurations you like, then you can just duplicate these. That's kind of another way to get around the master resume not having its own home on here. But let's come back over to our settings. So location, if you want to see it, I think my belief is the more you can consolidate, the better. And this matters more when you've had multiple positions at the same company. So like in this case, you could put the location per company. Let's go ahead and make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. Right, I'm adding it per location, per position, but I don't know. It's just like if I was at the same company the whole time, I don't have to repeat the information. Now, this is one that can get a little technical, especially when it comes to the ATS. So my personal preference is that you group work experience by company. So in here, Regis, position 1, position 2. Some people really prefer to lead with the position and then the company. If you only had one position at a company, it sort of doesn't matter. In this particular case, I had 2 jobs at the same company. And so there's a couple things that come of that. You repeat the company and you basically have to put your tenure per position. If someone's skimming really quickly, they may not realize that those were 2 jobs at the same company and think that they were short tenures. I think if they're interested in your capabilities and the quality of the bullets are good, they will figure it out. But as people are skimming and they spend, very minimal amount of time, this is my preference. There's no empirical right and wrong answer here, but that's why we like it, and that's why Teal defaults to that. And then the dates. So that some people like to show the dates by position, even if they have them grouped by company. I prefer it at the company because it's the first day of your first position and either present or the last day of your last position. So it shows the maximum tenure. It's just like very few people are going to be put off by the fact that you were at a company for a long time. If someone's worried that it looks like they didn't move around and they were at a company for 10 plus years, then I think it's fine. My general rule of thumb is if any date range is less than 2 years, try to do anything you can to maximize that. So, say I was at a company for 4 years and each position was whatever, 3 years, each position was 1.5 years. My recommendation is to show the work experience by company and date range by company. It's like less information on the page. Also, spatially, it's a little more compact. But if you want to show the dates by position, it's fine. People, but you just kind of run that ever so slight risk that people don't realize they were at the same company. I also try to stick to the standards, the dates. Again, even though we read left to right, there is just kind of this nice ease of the dates being on the right. Oh, the technicality I referenced to, I will say for parsing, as much as it pains me, ATSs generally prefer the dates at the position level. When it's auto populating the application form, because you have to put in each position. Sometimes when you fill out in Workday or something like that, obviously if you don't have dates per position, how is it going to know? So what you could do, this is one of the benefits to managing this in Teal, is you could export out a version that's just for application population and then have a different version, which is the one that you want humans to see. So you basically upload the resume, have it fill out the form, delete it, because that's not like a live connection. That's just a one-time thing it does. And then upload the one that you want the human to see. That's how I would get around that. If you were using Google Docs or anything, you're going to run into the same problem. If you're sort of thinking about how the data is sort of consolidated and presented, that's going to make it tricky to auto-populate the job application for you. But again, because the data and the presentation separated here, pretty easy to just export two different versions of it. Okay. Those are the main things. You can play with the styling if you want to make the font bigger. I always tell people don't force the reader to pull out a magnifying glass. Go to 2 pages and keep it easier to read than really trying to be strict about 1 page. Just have it clean, have it crisp. This top third I tell people is really, really important. Try to have at least one job in that top third. I see a lot of people start to put, professional summary and then key objectives and key skills. And before you know it, more than half the page, they haven't gotten to any of the meat of their career history. So I would really try to avoid doing that. And then another thing I like is what I call a target title. Some people might call it a headline or heading. And as much as you can, just have that match the job you're applying to. Because that's boom, right there, super clear. And then a professional summary. And then professional summaries, I would tailor to each job you apply to. And, you just kind of paste a version of your resume into an AI tool. Oops, wrong thing. Or right within Teal, if you just add a professional summary and you have a job matched, it'll take all of your career history plus the JD and put together a professional summary for you that tailors it to that job. Okay, that is creating the resume. Just to put a pin in that, then you're going to go ahead and export. If you do want a cover letter, again, this is a great place for AI. Right within Teal, you can sort of pick your tone and just make it, and then stylistically, it'll match your resume. But if you're using Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, whatever, I think this is a great place for cover letters to paste those in together and help you write that and then tweak it and give it a little bit of your own voice. But you can do that right within here. And then this is to the question earlier, the analysis, right? This is for the application. I'd say this is good enough. Yeah, I could maybe make my professional summary a little longer. It's fine. Add more bullets. It's fine. It's anything over 60, 70% is fine. This is really just what we're trying to be is that friend that you send it to and be hey, did I miss anything? Is my email missing? Is my LinkedIn on there? Stuff like that. And then you're just going to go ahead and export it. You can export them together if you want. Most job applications want them as separate fields. So you just export it and that'll give you a PDF. And we'll just go ahead and save that right here. Actually, let me open that there. And what you want to do anytime you're exporting out a PDF, a resume, whether you're doing it in Canva Google Docs, just like open it, highlight the text, and make sure it's selectable. That I would say is the one core aspect to like ATS friendliness is that it's text. So if I do a search for the text, let's just do managed, like it can find it. That means it can search the text. That's the main thing you want. That is the most important thing that I would look out for, is that the text is searchable. These have that. All right, let me take a quick little beat there and go through questions. Let's see. This time I'm going to try to see if Emily already answered them so I don't say the same thing twice. Okay. Oh, actually, I see a discussion around ageism. Let me show another thing real quick. So look, I'm not for like resume obfuscation. Like recruiters look at resumes all day, every day. They know what you're doing. By default, Teal does put in the month and year. If you want to, you can just change that here in your settings in your date format. If you want to do year only, I don't really recommend it. If they're more than 2 years, it doesn't matter. But if they're, I'd say like this 21, like that, the person is gonna assume the worst. I'm gonna be like, oh, they were there from December 2021 to like March of 2022. They were only there 4 months and they're trying to hide it. So just be mindful of that. Like if you are trying to hide it, they will probably know. If it's also you were there for like 5 years and months are just kind of silly, that's also fine. Like no one's going to judge you for that, but if you wanted to do it, totally fine. And then leaving off dates like things like education, I think is also totally fine. No one needs to know that. So, if you don't want to include those things, just, don't have them. And that's also fine. You also don't have to include everything on your resume. People think that a resume has to be this kind of like archival, factual representation of your career. If there was jobs you had 15 years ago that aren't relevant to what you're applying to, just leave them off. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not lying. You're not being disingenuous. So you can do that as well if that's something I'm responding to a little bit of the commentary I'm seeing around ageism in the chat. Okay, let's see what else we got. That's a great question from Noel. Is it important to apply within 24 to 48 hours of the posting? I definitely think applying this sooner, it can't hurt. It's not a bad thing, especially in this market. I think it's quite competitive. That's why I think the alerts are really important. That's why we invested a ton of time and energy in building out that feature. I think the earlier you apply, the better. Instead of doing that through just like qualitative feedback, holy moly, it's 4:00 already. Well, I'll stick around. I have a few minutes there's a recording if anyone needs to jump. A job gets posted and people apply, right? And the recruiter's plate starts to get full. They start to schedule interviews and they start to talk to people. And the train leaves the station, metaphorically. And if they've got 100 applicants within the first 48 hours, there's no guarantee that their candidate is in there, but they're already having conversations, right? They're like, okay, I'm pretty full. Let me do that first batch of interviews. If no one is like a candidate there, then I'll go for the next round. You could still get into that next round, but why leave it to chance, right? Try to be in that first batch. Now, the balance you want to strike is like how good of an application do you want to submit versus the speed of the application. So if you have a master resume that's got a lot of your content already on there and you've done that pre-work and it's easy for you to get an application out, then great. So my general recommendation is get the application in as fast as you possibly can and then network after. See if you know somebody there, because the other thing I see people do is like they wait to see if they know someone first and they get a referral first. Some companies want you to refer first. I just say get the application in, a good application that's tailored if you're qualified, and then try to do some networking after. See if you can connect with a recruiter, see if you know somebody that works at the company. That's generally my recommendation for a workflow. But I think speed to application matters a lot. People I've talked to on the recruiting side and people I've talked to even at LinkedIn that used to work there would say that was by far like the largest predictor of success was speed to application. Again, assuming you were qualified and you had a good, all things being equal, speed to application, definitely a good thing. Okay, someone's asking, how far back do you go on your master resume? Your master resume, I would include everything. Like, because who knows? Maybe that experience from 20 years ago was in a domain, you worked in transportation and you haven't for your last couple jobs, and now you're going to go work somewhere in transportation and it could be valuable. So I think as far as your master resume goes, include everything because it might be valuable at some point. On what I then call like your application resume, that's where you want to be a little more selective. Okay, cool. I'm going to zip through these next parts because, like I said, I really wanted to focus on the front loading, the preparing of your materials, because that's like a lot of where you can completely control the process. Some other things you can start to do. You want to then start to manage all your applications. So I'll come over to my tracker now. There's lots of ways you can track. I'm a big believer in the saying, what gets measured gets managed. So track your applications. I was just talking to someone recently and I was like, how many jobs have you applied to? They're like, I'm not sure, like 10 to 15. I'm like, how do you know? Oh, they're in my head. One, that just like piles on the anxiety. You just don't know. That's like, there's so many unknowns and uncontrolled in the job search that it's just worth doing because then you can know whether to follow up. You can have a system, you can have a process. So I highly, highly recommend you do it, whether it's a Google Sheet, preferably not a notepad, but if you want to use this as an opportunity to learn Notion or Airtable or some tool, like that could be a reason to like make it fun. Or you can use Teal's job tracker. It's built in. There's another one called Hunter. It's really good. There's lots of great products. You could use something like Trello if you want to make a Kanban board. But once all your jobs are in here, especially if you're matching them with our resume builder, they come in automatically. So here's that job. I would say now I applied. And so I would track that. We do give you some guidance once you're there. So now that you've applied, it's like, hey, let me send a follow-up. Here's an email template that you can use for that. Just copy paste it, change it a little bit. My screen's a little small. Let me make it a little bigger. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the screen share. Those are in there. Or you can just find them. Again, use AI for that. It's a great use case for those things. And follow up. And we have these little checklists to help you with that. But, at a certain point, I would say also like prune your backlog. If you don't hear back from the company in 2 to 3 weeks, just go ahead and change the status, close it as archived, no response, not so if you hear back, clean it out. Now, let's say you do move forward, you get that email that says you're being brought into the interview process, go ahead and move it over to interviewing, right? And that's going to allow you to go to your tracker and quickly see all the jobs you have in the various stages. Let's just say now all the ones I've applied to, I'm changing those to applied. You can quickly check in and see, just click the chevrons. What do I have in what stage? And you can tend to your backlog of jobs. You can also just update those right here. You can quickly change your data. On the home of Teal, you can also set a weekly goal of how many jobs you've applied to. And then you get your job search pipeline, which is the efficacy of your job search. And then jobs that you've got in the applying or bookmark stage, you can quickly know to like take action on those. And if you don't want to apply, I would say like be generous with bookmarking, like bookmark a lot of jobs. Think of it as like things you're putting in your shopping cart on Amazon. You're not sure you're going to buy yet. And then you can decide if you want to apply. And this is like sometimes going through a little process of like rating your excitement for the jobs is a great way to say, okay, these are the ones I want to invest time and energy in applying to. And the other ones, I'm just going to discard those. I have them there as backup for later. But I would say like, come up with a routine every day, bookmark those jobs, set up those alerts, have those saved searches, check those out. The market, new jobs come on the market every day. Now that we have these data feeds, I can tell you it's tens of thousands of jobs get put on the market every day being opened. Obviously different categories, different occupations, it's different amounts. And it also depends on your criteria. There are less remote jobs if that's really what you want. Those are a little trickier to find, but they're out there. So do that, tend to your backlog. Now, let's say this job, again, we got moved to the interviewing stage. And then you want to start to track your interviews. Do that again, whether it's in a Google Sheet, an Airtable, whatever Notion. And Teal, you can do it right here. Do tracking your interviews, set your interview date. Say this one was tomorrow at 10:30. We'll go ahead and save that. Type of interview, initial screen, and it's a video interview. Now, we do have a tool that I'd say is kind of like in beta, is for practicing your interviews. I'll launch it here real quick. And so, yeah, you guys can see me. I can like talk to it. I don't think you can hear the tool every time I've done this. It doesn't work. I don't think there's a way for me to broadcast audio back into StreamYard. So let's just go ahead and start a practice session. Um, I'm good. How are you? Yep. Looks like it does not hear me. So, anyways, like I said, it's a beta tool, but you can do this. I think more important part here is that you understand that you can practice interviews. I think for a lot of folks, it used to be really difficult to do this. You would need to find someone who would ask you mock questions. And that really has gone away with AI. If you use ChatGPT or Gemini, you can put on voice mode and just paste in the JD and say, interview me, ask me questions. You can just say, what kinds of questions do you think I'll get asked in this interview? So I really recommend you do that. And something you could do is, even if you haven't gotten the interview yet, this is a great way to create resume content and have one of the AIs sort of interview you and ask you questions. Then you might turn that into resume content. So I recommend that. We'll dig into why this isn't working. It'll then rate your interview. But that's built in right here. And then another thing I wanted to show you guys actually in the tracker is let's see if this tool's not broken. Yeah, here we go. So all the jobs in your tracker, as you're working through your job search, it gives you a sense. If you come over to this compensation tab, you can get a kind of a little bit of a market map of all the jobs in your tracker. So here I'm seeing the comp ranges of the job metrics. So assuming they're all similar, of similar title and things like that, you would then get like a heat map of years of experience. So this is a pretty cool tool. This is totally free. It's in here as well. It's all the jobs in your tracker. You can filter it to certain jobs by different ranges and stuff like that. And I didn't show that you can track your people and companies as well. This used to be more valuable when you can just like quickly with one click add a person with the Chrome extension. You can still do it. I still recommend you do it. But in the tracker, like in your jobs, you can add people here, contacts, and just add them in as well. So you want to make sure you track all those things. Okay, and then once you have an offer, we have a similar chat tool where you can upload your offer letter and analyze it. It'll give you a bunch of different comp. You can chat with it. But you can also do this in ChatGPT. I think it does those things really, really well. I'm not going to go through that now just for the purposes of time so I can answer any questions. And then when all is said and done, you're going to, move your job to accepted. That is the goal, right? You set up a process, set up your weekly cadence, set up a goal of how many jobs you want to apply to, whether you like to do it daily, weekly, 1 a day, 2 a day, 10 a week, 5 a week. But I think cadence and momentum really are important. And don't slow down. What I see some people do is they get that first interview and like, okay, cool, I don't have to apply anymore. Do not do that. The worst case scenario is that you've got like 3 job offers, and that's a good problem to be in. So my biggest recommendation is keep the cadence. Keep going, keep applying, keep refining, keep improving your materials. And that way you also like build the muscle. And it goes faster as you go. Like the faster you tailor your resumes, the quicker they become. Now, if you're applying to jobs that are similar, it will get faster. If you're applying to jobs that are wildly different, it might feel like a lot of work. And I would say that's kind of like a signal that maybe the jobs you're applying to are too broad. You might need to kind of like laser in some. Because it's tricky to just present because even your LinkedIn is probably not going to be as mapped as nicely to the resume as you're applying to, because you're casting a very wide net. And so those are some things you may want to adjust and, if you're struggling to get responses. Okay, I will now answer questions. Oh, Jake, yeah, I know. It's a little bit of a job search trap. It's very counterintuitive, this idea that you think you cast a wide net and it's going to open up more possibilities. Historically, what I've seen is that the opposite is true. You end up having a little bit of like a generalist resume, and it's hard. And I like to say it's like people hire for specialists, but then like promote you because you're a generalist. Most companies have a problem, right, or a pain, and that's why they opened a role. They either lack the capabilities or they're short, time and they needed someone with the capability. So they usually have a pretty acute need. You need to show that you can address that need. And then once you're in there, show that you can do all sorts of things. And that's how you add value. But when it comes to hiring, they want to see something pretty specific. So I would even say try picking 1 or 2 occupations, for like a month. And if, those don't feel good, then try on a third or something. But that focus, I think, will even help you get better. Because even as you're writing bullets, if you're kind of like, oh, well, in this, I could do that, or I could do this, try giving yourself that focus for a little bit. Okay. Does Teal still offer a function to evaluate your LinkedIn profile? No. That used to be in the Chrome extension, and in that kind of like, we want to listen to what LinkedIn tells us to do, we got rid of that. We are exploring ways to do a version of that to bring it back. It would probably be a little bit more work for you. You might need to do like a screenshot and paste it or something, because we're just like not allowed to touch that page without violating LinkedIn's terms of service. But if you send me a link, I'm happy to do a Loom. Just DM me on LinkedIn or reply to one of the member support emails, or just email me, dave@tealhq.com, and I'll review your LinkedIn for you if that's helpful. Oh, cool. I'm glad, Jenny, you found the interview tool. We got to dig into it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was broadcasting, but it does break every once in a while. Okay. All right, cool. Any other questions? Let's see. All right. Well, I'll stick around for a minute if there's any other questions. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate you being here. Sorry, today was like a little jumpy all over the place. I kind of tried a slightly different outline. Didn't work as well. It wasn't as smooth, but we jumped around a little. But we are going to be compiling this stuff up into a video series so you guys can watch it. We do have past webinars, and this one is recorded. So anything we can do to help you, please let us know. Hope you are able to get some rest over the next few weeks, holiday season, as the year comes to an end. But stick with it. There's a lot of cool jobs out there. We're seeing people move jobs to accepted in our tracker every day. Like, people are getting jobs, people are getting interviews every day. I know the process can feel like a bit of a black hole, but there's cool stuff happening out there. It's a really interesting time to be in the market, with all the things that are happening with AI and the different tooling. So, sort of make the most of it and let us know however we can be helpful. So let's see if there's any, did I miss any questions here? So anyone's going to jump off again, happy holidays, and I hope you have a happy new year. We'll be back in the new year with another webinar. We're trying to do these once a month. Oh, if you haven't joined the Discord, join that as well. That's another way to sort of chat with us on a more real-time basis. All right, I'll stick around for a few more questions. Oh, thanks, Diane. I'm glad it was helpful. Craig, let us know however we can help with that. One of the big things that LinkedIn does is the network. We don't have that, so definitely keep using LinkedIn. But we are trying to source a lot of the jobs, and we probably have a lot of jobs that LinkedIn doesn't have on there, because LinkedIn doesn't ingest. I mean, they might ingest some, but generally you need to post the jobs to LinkedIn or have a relationship with the company. So we're trying to have a wider net there. So, but we're really working hard on our job search tools. We want you to find all the opportunities as fast as possible. So feedback there would be great. We have some updates coming to the member search here soon, giving you better filters, better saved search, better presentation of the jobs themselves. So look out for that. And then the AI search is something we're going to continue to try to make better, so you can look for jobs that maybe you hadn't found, kind of doing different queries. So please let us know. Feedback is very, very welcome there. Okay, so Bruce is asking, I like to do this. Okay, so I can statistician job titles and then use Claude. I don't know if I'm fully understanding the question. I can look at market. Yes, you can look for job titles. Now, different companies might name it different things. And then use client to search for structural equation. Okay, so that would be like a subset of it. What I was talking about earlier is look for jobs that have structural equation modeling in them and ignore the job title because that might then surface titles that you hadn't considered. That's what I'm suggesting. Look, I mean, that might not reveal much, but sometimes you just don't know how companies are going to label job titles, or there may be job titles you weren't aware of. And so there may be jobs you are qualified for that just didn't have a title that you knew to look for. So that was my recommendation there. And you can do that either in like the faceted search, you can do that in the AI search, or again, any other job board. It's more of like a keywords or skills based approach to looking for jobs, and not necessarily a job title approach, right? Because maybe a company in their marketing department has a market analysis position, and that's a really important skill they have, but you wouldn't have looked for like marketing statistician role or something because it wasn't a title you were. That's really what I was proposing there. Hope that makes sense. Let's see, coming down. Oh, Mike, that's awesome. That's great. That's what we like to hear. We're really trying to have a super wide net of jobs. We source from a few different job sources. We want to have like really great coverage. So that's the idea. That's like, companies right now can't pay to post jobs on Teal, and even if or when we enable that, the goal is still to have every job on there. Maybe one day companies can promote them, but most importantly, we want you to have the coverage so you don't need to go to different job boards. Oh, good. Thanks, Bruce. I'm glad that answered it for you. Is there a good spot to find a good prompt to use in your AI job search tool? We haven't made that yet, but we will. That is a good homework assignment for me. Some prompts you could try to get that different research. Yep, I'll take that as a task, as a to-do, so you can try a couple different prompts. All right, we'll wrap there. Again, thanks everyone for joining. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season and a new year. If you have any questions, let us know. We will be on and offline. We're kind of sort of shutting down as a little startup for the week, but I'll be online and we'll be able to answer your questions if you need anything. So let us know, and we'll see you in the new year. All right. Thanks, everyone.